welcome everyone to today's episode. And I have been waiting to have these two wonderful gentlemen on my podcast since they purchased White Now. For those that are in the registered club industry, hotel and the broader hospitality industry in Australia, you know that White Now has been the number one recruitment agency for our industry for decades. And it's lovely that it has now gone into the hands of both Ian and Grant. So I've brought them on today to have a conversation about why they purchased White Now, about how they are passionate about regional clubs and how they are different from other recruitment agencies. But before we get into those questions, let me read your bio so you know exactly who these two gentlemen are. Ian brings over 30 years of senior leadership experience across tourism, hospitality, destination marketing, luxury retail, and real estate development across multiple global markets. In 2016, he founded his own consulting business, and in 2019, entered into a partnership with a London-based business specialising in retail strategy, mixed-use development, and placemaking. Since 2018, Ian and his wife have been living in Australia in a small coastal town of Bermagui. And I've got a place just not far from there in Eden, and it is the most spectacular part of the country, and it's called the Sapphire Coast. It really is beautiful.
Well done, Michelle. Well done, Michelle, for knowing it's the Sapphire Coast.
Yes, it's perfect. So while maintaining his international business interests, Ian is also deeply involved in the local community. He served for 3 years on the board of the Bermagui Country Club, 2 as president. This is where Grant and Ian met and the idea for a business serving the club industry began. Ian was also a board director of the Destination Southern New South Wales, the regional tourism authority for the area. Grant has spent 20 years in clubs and hospitality in regional areas with some time in a private consultancy firm in a senior finance role. He now owns and operates E2E Hospitality, which incorporates White Now Recruitment. Ian and Grant, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's going to be great. Look, and I've got some formal questions, but as my listeners know, we always go off in lots of little tangents and directions. But, as I said, Jenny White had, established White Now Recruitment around the same time as I started, over 3 decades ago. So, handing over the reins to somebody else was, I think for the industry, who are these? How do we get to know them? So I'd love to know a little bit more about tell us more about what's behind, taking ownership of White Now, but what drew you to it, and then what felt important about continuing in the legacy while also making it your own?
Who should kick off? I'll kick off a little bit, Michelle. So as you said in the introduction, Grant and I met working very closely together at Bermagui Country Club, which... for me, coming from the UK, the clubs industry is a very sort of new and different setup here in Australia than you would see pretty much in any other places around the world, actually. So when I sat on the board and then was president, and Grant came in as general manager, we had the job to turn around a perennially money-losing club. So we worked really closely together for those 3 years. And always through those discussions and through working together, we always felt at the end of our tenures in those roles, there was an opportunity particularly to help other regional clubs in not a dissimilar position. Financially unstable, small communities, but very important businesses for the community, both in terms of the offer to attract tourists and also the employment opportunities that it gives people in the town. So we set up our parent company, E2E Hospitality Solutions, with the purpose of focusing on the regional clubs that needed that level of help. Grant's really excellent operational background and my more general business background. After we'd set the business up, Grant had the brilliant idea of having a conversation with Jenny to see if we could have a discussion really about just working together, using Jenny's experience in the industry, connections in the industry. And a long story short, basically we had 2 or 3 conversations and Jenny said, would you like to buy the business? And we thought long and hard about it for a couple of reasons. One is when somebody's had a business for 26 years and it's a very personal business, sometimes the transition into new ownership is not easy because
Yes.
people just connect Jenny with White Now. And
Yes.
and that's basically glued together. So that was one consideration. The second consideration, quite honestly, was do Grant and I want to get into recruitment? Because neither of us come from a recruitment background. But I don't think that's so important when you've been in business for a long time and you've hired dozens and if not hundreds
Yes.
of people.
Yes.
And basically you know the process to go through, you know what you're looking for. You can see cultural fits quite easily. So we just took the decision that it would be a very logical end-to-end service for the clubs industry, and not just clubs industry, hospitality more broadly, to have recruitment through to consultancy, advisory, and redevelopment services should clubs need that as well. So that's
Yes.
kind of a elevator explanation of why and how we did it.
I must have been going up the Empire State Building. It was a very big
It was a long
elevator.
one, yeah.
It's a long elevator.
Yeah.
And somebody hit stop on the way up. But look, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's what's really important, that we know who you are, and I know the industry and know you as individuals, and particularly with Grant over his time in the club industry itself as well. But, those regional venues, and I know, I love going out into the country. I mean, I was born in the country and it's lovely to get out there, but you're right. It's tourism, but we saw a massive group of people, just leave from the city during those COVID years and, flock to the country, who then took up a lot of the accommodation. And I know with a lot of my clients who are in regional areas, in Singleton and other areas, that they may have had the staff who applied for the jobs, but they didn't have anywhere to live. So it's that, and as well as bringing teams over for, chefs from overseas. So, let's just look at this regional space, because I know that's a passion of both of yours. Where do you see that? How do we fix it in that sense? You can recruit, but how are you working with clubs to establish as well, that accommodation piece, that what are they actually looking for?
Yeah, I think that's the first conversation we have with a regional club when they reach out is, where are you going to put them essentially when you eventually do hire this person. A lot of them do have that solution, whether that's some of them own their own accommodation. That's usually only a short-term scenario. Lots of them, one in particular, fortunately had a real estate agent sitting on their board, so she was able to shuffle the deck chairs a little bit for a successful candidate.
Yes.
But it's like, I don't think there is a silver bullet, to be fair.
No. Yeah.
Unless a club, is serious about, right, we're going to invest in some local real estate so that we can house that. And I've seen a few solutions, where I am locally that are similar. There's a local hospitality business that bought out an old motel and now house all of their transient staff in there. So,
yes,
I think you've just got to think outside the box and be aware that is going to be a problem from minute one, from the moment you're outgoing, whether it's GM or whatever role it is. Typically it's GM for us in regional areas. It's like, as soon as they'd say I'm out, they're likely retiring, they're likely staying in the town, so they're not giving up a bed, so to speak.
Yes.
So so you've got to find that solution probably before you even start interviewing people, you know what I mean?
And I was just thinking then, Grant, that, to get people out into a regional area that have perhaps got a young family as well, we can sell them the ideal of, this is a beautiful place to bring up your family, but is it also that we can be selling them and we've got this accommodation ready for you, or, somewhere, because I think that's always somebody's concern, isn't it?
Yeah.
The job sounds fantastic, but they hesitate in applying because it's, well, where's my partner and the children going to live, or even if it's a single person as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's right. And when there's a family involved as well, like there's other things that come into consideration, like schooling. Is there good sport? All that sort of stuff around there. So it's a big consideration for people, especially shifting out of the metro area.
Yes.
And I think, Michelle, it's something clubs need to think about in the longer term, because one of the things that regional clubs do have often is land. That's the one asset that they do have. Many clubs have spare land or land that can be repurposed, or however you want to describe it. And I think always, when redevelopments or repurposing happens, the immediate thought is often housing, because that is obviously something the town needs, and also can drive different income streams into the club. They're not reliant on the traditional income streams of a club.
Yes.
But the additional element of that is, if you do that development, you can have a couple of those properties for yourself, and you can actually utilize them to bring in staff from outside the area. And it's a question that we get from candidates immediately. We do screening interviews for those roles. One of their first questions is actually not about the club itself or the business or how it's trading or whatever. It's, will there be accommodation there? Is it even worth me going through this process if there is no accommodation at the end of it and I cannot move there?
Yes, yeah. So it's really getting the clubs to think, as you rightly said, you've got to think about that, and that's part of the promotion, So when they ask that question, or even before they ask that question for recruitment, you can actually, and we've got this organised, for big or small, and so it's those little things that club industry and the board have to think outside that square, and that diversification piece is so very important.
Yes.
So we've talked about that part, but what about recruitment? Because there are a lot of recruitment agencies for all different industries, and some of them cross and go over. But, you've both had a very diversified background, apart from just being in hospitality, and it can be a little bit crowded at sometimes. But what do you do differently, and why does that actually matter to a CEO or a board trying to make that right hire? Because that's the biggest thing. You're looking at senior management. Are we going to get the right person? So what makes you different?
So I think over the years, speaking for myself, I've dealt with so many recruitment agencies in different spaces. My frustrations were always the same. They never look outside of the box, never think laterally about the type of candidate that they put in front of you. You give them a job description and they try and tick all those boxes on the job description. I've never been asked, when I've been hiring senior people, if you had to compromise on something, what would you compromise? They just try and tick the boxes. So that means you get always the same candidates. Pretty much. It's the same candidates doing the circuit. So I used to get very frustrated with that. And I also used to get very frustrated because I never felt that the recruitment consultant was trying to sit in my shoes and say, if that was my business, this is who I would hire.
Yes.
And this is what we're trying to, this is kind of our message to clubs. We talked a lot about regional. Grant and I have been up in Sydney this week meeting with, some big clubs in the Sydney metro area as well. And this is our message. We approach it completely with an open mind. We approach any recruitment assignment just with the ultimate ambition of getting you the best person for the role. And that person might come from inside the industry or outside the industry. And that's a whole different conversation, Michelle.
Yes.
But we also take that step back and say, if this was my business, who would we hire?
Yes.
Not, this is a great assignment. This is what it means in terms of fees. And, we've got the 6 or 10 usual suspects that we're going to put in front of a club. So I think that's what's very different about how we approach things. What that means is sometimes the hire takes longer to fill because we're not just trying to get somebody into those shoes as quickly as possible. And with the clubs industry, you often get, we just need to hire somebody really quickly. We need somebody really quickly. Because notice periods are often like 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
Yes.
Which again, if you've got a CEO or general manager, I find that quite odd that you wouldn't have a much longer period to get yourself sorted out. So it's not just about the speed of hire. It's not just about getting somebody into the shoes. It's somebody that will fit into that club culturally. They're the right person, and they'll be there for a long period of time.
So that brings me to I've just been thinking, and this is going to be a double-barreled question. We are looking at, because I've been in this industry for so long, probably I would say in the next five years, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, we're going to lose quite a number of our amazing senior leaders that, it's time for retirement. They've worked really hard. They've left a great legacy behind them. So they're moving on. The second part of this question is, well, the first part is how are we getting ready to find replacements for them. But the second part is we saw a massive group of middle managers disappear during COVID, and we've battled to find them to come back into the industry. So I've always been, preaching to the converted, I'm sure here is, let's look at who have we got inside the organisation that we can develop up. Now, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think also it's looking to recruit somebody for those senior levels from outside and giving the board an idea of they don't have to be exactly who you've had before, because we don't have baby boomers. They're going to be Gen X, and they may even be Gen Y, top and the bottom of Gen Y, but also who you've thought is going in there as your middle management team. Is there somebody there that in 2 years' time, when that CEO is going, and some of them are already doing this, looking, do you also come into that recruitment side looking at, well, who have you got on the inside that we can also feel that they're that right person to develop into that role?
Yeah.
I think complicated question there. I'm sorry. But
yeah. I'll try and take it a bit by a bit, but I think you're spot on. Like, some clubs particularly in that middle management space, are doing a really, really good job. We spoke to one yesterday, doing a really, really good job bringing their own people along and incubating them, but they've also got the infrastructure to do that as well. Typically in a larger club, it puts a lot of pressure, I think, on smaller medium club CEOs they've got to spend their time holding the board's hand. They've got to spend their time putting out fires left, right and centre. They're probably pretty operational, and then they've also got to spend some time sort of mentoring people up, and so it puts a lot of. No, I haven't even mentioned compliance in there. Do you know what I mean? And I think
have to?
yeah, and I wonder whether the compliance piece is a little bit of the fatigue that's contributing to some of these senior guys in the industry thinking, all right, it's probably I've had enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I guess our role in that is we would come in before a recruitment assignment, or we're certainly open to coming in before a recruitment assignment and having a look at the org structure, who's actually in the org, what skills are there, the skills gaps, that sort of thing. And then to your point of, potentially bringing someone from outside of the industry into those CEO roles, those senior roles, I think it's a really, really good a good thought, and I think it's necessary, really. But it's about that sell to the board that these skills are transferable.
Yes.
I sort of experienced that when I left the clubs industry and moved into private consulting firm. I was like, oh, I don't even know whether they'll consider me, because I can pour a good beer, but do you know what I mean? How do I explain to them that I've also been right in the guts of a P&L and I understand all? So it's a difficult going both ways, I think. And I think we've got to think a little bit more laterally as an industry about what the actual skills are. It's not, just customer service. That's relationship management and all that sort of stuff. I think you've really got to think hard about what those skills mean and what is missing in your organisation that you need to bring in.
Yeah. And I see it from both perspectives too, because it's you educating the board and the senior management about, look, we can bring other people in to, outside the industry. They don't have to be just from the registered club industry. I mean, we've got some amazing people, but there's a lot of good people that could also come in. But I also see it from the other side when, there are different roles come up and clubs will say to me, oh, look, do you know anybody? I'll say, I know people on the outside of the industry, and I may mention it to them, and they'll go, Oh, I don't know. I've never been to a club. I'm only in this sector. I'm only in that sector. So how do you sell it, so to speak, to candidates or people that aren't even candidates yet, that this is an amazing industry to be in?
I think on that side, Michelle, what we've observed in the relatively short time that we've owned White Now is we do get a lot of people applying for senior roles from outside the industry.
Excellent. That's
So
great.
people are applying, and they're coming from highly regulated industries like aged care, for example,
Right.
which is just as highly regulated, if not more so, actually, than the clubs industry. So the people are out there. I think what they're very surprised about is when they do start applying for roles, how well compensated they are in the clubs
Yes.
industry. I do think one of the reservations they have is not that they don't deal with boards in their other jobs, but it's quite a unique industry where customers of the club are
Yeah.
actually on the board making decisions. That is quite a unique position. My analogy is it's like BP having, their board made up of people that buy fuel. Who would ever vote for fuel prices to go up? Nobody. So it's
Good.
so there are some interesting. I think there's. I don't think for 1 minute that everybody who is suitable from outside the industry is applying. I think they do look at it. I think some people do look at it and say, do I really want to be in that industry? Because it is, so closely linked with gaming and so on. So I think there are some people who don't apply who would be really good in the industry. Then we do get the people that apply, and we speak to these people, almost on a daily basis, and they're hugely impressive people.
Yes.
I think we can sell the industry and a particular job to those people. I do still think the single biggest challenge is getting the board
Yeah.
to take that leap. I don't want to say it's even a leap of faith, but take that step to understand that maybe somebody who understands gaming machines,
Yeah.
that's not the critical piece
Yes.
of running a big organization. It's about leadership. It's about driving culture. It's about bringing a team together to deliver an exceptional experience for customers every single minute of every single day.
Yes.
And it's about the financial stability and longevity of clubs. Everything else, I believe, you can teach people.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Grant.
Yeah.
You told
No,
me a
I
lot
agree,
about
yeah.
you told me a lot about stuff I didn't know in the clubs
Yeah.
industry. I mean, you can learn it. So, but I do also think there's a little bit of emphasis on the associations or the organisations surrounding the clubs industry. So we know Clubs New South Wales, CMA, etc. I do think there's also a little bit on their side of things to make the industry more attractive to outsiders.
Yes.
And also make it, don't take this as it sounds, but make it more welcoming. Make it feel like it is actually possible if you come from outside the industry
Accessible.
and you're a CEO in a major business, you can make that transition.
Yes.
And help them do it.
Yeah.
Just give them a path to do it.
Yes, giving them that pathway, and I suppose the clubs now are just so diversified. Like all hospitality industry, it really has diversified over the last 10, 15 years, and we're seeing them going into purchasing restaurants and gymnasiums and all sorts of things that they've been really diversifying out there. So major hotel complexes, multiple venues. So there's lots of opportunities even in that commercial side of business with shopping centres. And I think that's the thing. So do you see now, what are clubs looking for? When they look for a senior manager, can you give us 3 top tips, for a CEO or a board member listening to this podcast now? What would be the 3 critical things that they need to bring to you to say, this is who we're looking for? What would you love for them to bring to you?
I think we'd like them to step, and we had a great conversation with a club board a couple of days ago about this, and they were very receptive to people from outside of the industry because they have an operational leader who's strong in the industry. But I think what we'd like them to sort of give us is more the leadership style that's needed, more of, all right, what's not necessarily what's coming up next year. You might have a renovation plan. That's fine. You could hire a CEO that could get that done. But then what do they do for the 5 years after that? So So what's your sort of 10-year time horizon? What's happening in your minds? Have you even got a strat plan? So maybe that's a different type of candidate. And a third one, Ian, there's a few I can think of, but I probably wouldn't say them on the podcast. So maybe with your diplomacy, you can drop a third one in.
No, I think I think that's right. Maybe the leadership element for me is the critical thing.
Yes.
And I think there's probably a tradition historically in the clubs industry of the general manager CEO role being seen as somebody out on the floor, chatting to members, maybe having a little beer with them at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. For me, that's when you're getting into those senior roles, it's not about that. It's about leadership, it's about strategic thinking, and it's about critical thinking.
Yes.
So I think again, I don't want to offend people on the podcast, but I think boards have to be a little bit more in that critical thinking space.
Yes.
Not just we need to hire somebody, we need to fill those shoes.
Yes.
Need to even take a step back and say, actually, do we even need that role filling?
Yes.
Can we deploy people in others, in better ways for the business? And certainly, if you're bringing in a CEO or general manager, depending on what the title is, I think that leadership, critical thinking, and strategic thinking, for me, those are the three elements, but they're often not at the top of the list.
Yes. Yeah.
They're really not. It's more the operational doing the do.
Yes.
As I call it.
Yes.
If you're hiring a CEO, you don't need somebody to do the nitty gritty work in that sense. Of course, we all say when we're interviewing for jobs, "Oh, I want to lead by example."
Yes.
I don't want to ask the staff to do anything that I wouldn't do. For me, complete nonsense. Because you've already done what you're asking them to do in your career.
Yes.
That's why you're the CEO. That's why you've come through the ranks. And that's why you've then elevated yourself into a senior management role. I think, if you, 45 years old and you're being appointed to a CEO role, you don't need to be sweeping the floor.
Yes.
You don't need to be serving a beer. You don't need to be doing all of those things that I think often members have come to expect from their club leader.
Yes, yeah.
So I think another job of the board, as I'm thinking and rambling here, another job of the board is to educate the members and say, we are bringing a leader in that you will not be having a beer with at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because they are running a multi-million-dollar business.
Yes, yeah.
And their job is to lead the club, lead the people, and make sure this club is here in 10, 20, 30 years.
Yes. And it's so true, things have changed so much over the years, and yes, it's been nice, particularly in regional clubs, to have somebody. And I think you'll always have the CEO, and I think it's important for them to walk through, say hello. And I know when I'm having meetings and people know who they are, but I know when I'm running my management programs, I always say, you've got to have boundaries in place, and that's probably the biggest thing, where they turn around and they go, "Oh, but Michelle, it's just easier, it's quicker." And I say to them, "Yeah, I know it's going to be quicker and it'll be done right if you do it." But I said, but by you doing it, you're not allowing them to learn. And guess what? Somebody at some stage trusted you to do that role, make the mistakes, and if they hadn't, you wouldn't be where you are today.
I'd actually question that, Michelle. Did they? Did they? Were they trusted back in the day to do it? Or are they doing what they observed from their general manager and CEO back in the day?
Yes, and the control freaks. Not all.
Yeah.
Not all.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think boundary is the spot on word. Like it's like, sure, be present, see the members. I mean, we saw a great example of that while we were up there, Ian. And we won't name the club, but very present management. But they weren't there picking up glasses, or they were there to be present for the members, and that was their purpose on that evening, sort of thing.
Yes,
and
I think
also observing how the team were operating.
Yeah,
They were
absolutely.
watching but not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it wasn't like they were pulling staff up, mid shift and going, that was all left for the next morning, a
Yes.
review sort of thing. So I think boundaries is a great way to put
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And it's important because then the person is, the frontline team, then they have that greater respect, they understand, and they're learning their new skills that are going to develop them as well.
Yeah.
Plus, then, and we know, you're talking about compliance earlier on, Grant, that they've got so much on in their own headspace, senior managers. If they don't relinquish something and put those boundaries in place, then their heads are absolutely exploding. So
Yeah, they're just spinning plates. Yeah.
And I think we're going
And if you're doing that, you're coming in almost anticipating, expecting you're going to be doing a 12-hour day every day. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And you're not going to get, I'm sorry, but as the generations move on, you're not going to get people who are going to do that, because they've got family or they could be a single person and they just want a life. And because I'm sure you've seen it. I've worked with some beautiful people and they are burnt out and they're only in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking we're going to lose some great people because they're just absolutely exhausted,
Yeah. So I do think one of the board's responsibilities is to educate members on what's going, and that means transparency. It means being open with that membership and saying this is kind of the path we're on as a business.
Yes.
And this is how it's going to develop. There isn't often that, I don't think, that level of communication. And I sometimes understand why, because having been in that position, sometimes it means uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
But you have to do it.
Yes.
I think you have to do it.
Yeah. And they don't have to be uncomfortable. We all know when we've had one of those conversations, it's just like this big relief is off our shoulders, and you think why does it have to be uncomfortable? If you've aligned it with your values in the organization, then the conversation is a lot easier because it's not, this is what I think about you, it's not aligned with our values. And we see clubs doing that more with the values within as well as the connection to community. Gentlemen, we could talk all day, but I think what's the most important is how do they get in contact with you? How, what's the breadth of White Now, which areas do you actually go to, and just tell us a little bit more about that, because I know there'll be people on this podcast that would love to learn a little bit more and contact you.
We are the easiest people to contact, Michelle. Our direct phone numbers are on the website. We're on LinkedIn. We're everywhere. There's people can find us super easily. Since we took over the business, the White Now business, the website's had a big upgrade. It's also we also brought back the job board.
Oh, perfect. Can you just tell the listeners about the job board? Because I know I talk about it when I'm training them, and a lot of them weren't around when it was there. So so if you could just share that would be great.
Yeah, so the job board, as you know, Michelle, was like, I was on it once a week just having a look. Do you know what I mean? Everyone was just there having a bit of a play on it, and then I think it was around COVID that it sort of stopped. So we've brought that back. I guess a little bit more self-service functionality there. You can upload, the details of your job, place an ad direct and pay direct on the website as well. You can equally, if you prefer to have that personal touch, reach out to us. Our emails are on the website, and we'll do that for you. So we draft the ad before we post it. We send it to you guys to have a look and make sure you're happy with it, because we want it to reflect the club.
Yes.
And so that's back up and running. A future development will be, a lot of clubs are using things like UKG and Tanda for their candidate management. So we're developing an API where you'll be able to essentially plug directly into our website. So posting to your own networks and your own website, but also to the White Now website direct as well. We find a lot of big clubs do a lot of their own advertising and then don't come to us until they haven't found someone. Yes. So we're trying to make that a bit more accessible and a bit more convenient. And then of course we have our other products listed on the website as well. The shortlisting service, which is great for those sort of middle management roles. Where we just produce a list of, say, 6 to 8 people for you guys to take on an interview after we've done some screening. And then we've got obviously full recruitment on there as well, which is where we take you all the way through.
Perfect. That's excellent. And so it's whitenow.com.au.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll certainly put that in the show notes as well as your
Excellent.
individual LinkedIn. So you will be have
Right out
lots of
there.
requests for connections.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but we've tried to uplift the social media side of things,
Yes.
particularly through LinkedIn.
Yes.
Which I think is actually quite a weak area of the industry very broadly. There's even a number of senior people that don't have LinkedIn profiles.
Yes.
And certainly once you get down the hierarchy, very few people have LinkedIn profiles. So it's very interesting to see that. And we there was also the Facebook element of White Now previously. We haven't lost any of that. What we've tried to do is bring a bit more control to it, because one of the things that we found was that there was a lot of jobs going on there that were not even related to the industry,
Yes.
and certainly it was driving a lot of applicants that were not relevant. And what we're trying to do when we're thinking about this, we're trying to make the club's life, who ultimately is the client,
Yes.
we're trying to make their life as easy as possible. So we're trying to make sure, and you'll never do it perfectly, but we're trying to make sure that the majority of candidates that come in, if they're going directly to the club,
Yes.
obviously if they're coming to us, we'll do it anyway. But if they're going directly to the club, they're not getting 90% of rubbish.
Yes. Yes.
So it's driving the right candidates, the relevant candidates, and allowing them at least to have the best view of who's out there looking for the work that they're looking to fill.
Yeah. Just connecting the right people for the right role
Yes.
at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah. Spot on.
It is absolutely key.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ian and Grant, for spending your time with me today. And I know
Thanks,
my
Michelle.
listeners will have gotten a lot from our conversation. Is there one thing that I haven't asked you about your business or about recruitment in the hospitality industry at the moment that you would like to share?
Oh,
I think just keep an eye on us. We've got a couple of irons in the fire that probably aren't really. It's not quite announceable yet, but keep an eye on our socials and our webpage. So there's a couple of things we're ready to release in the next few months that add a few strings to our bow, or whatever the analogy is.
Wonderful.
Keep up with us, and I mean, I guess the other thing is too, if you're a candidate and you're looking for a new role and there's not something in the market, just reach out. We're pretty good at scheduling a time just to have a chat with you, even if there aren't roles available. We like to get to know what people are looking for, so that we can, add them into roles or touch them on the shoulder when we have appropriate roles. So
and we'll be exhibiting this year, Michelle, at Age.
Perfect.
We'll be attending the RSL SC conference, so we're really trying to get out there.
Yes, well, I
Trying
will
to get out there and meet people.
I will definitely see you at the AG. This is my 9th year of being the MC for all the seminars, and we're actually down on the floor this year. For all the previous years, we've always been upstairs. So we're in the corner, far left-hand corner this year. So I'm sure we'll see you. And of course, I've been a long-term corporate partner of the RSL. So I look forward to meeting you both in person then, instead of via Zoom. But thank you once again, Ian and Grant, for joining me today. And I wish you all the very best. And I love that little teaser about coming soon. So watch this space. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you.